I actually saw one once where it had the Y and how they.
Where it sits today, and it has been our kick shopping depot ever since. We're going to be making 3 short stops along our trip. If you folks have any questions, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be the last one here when we get back. So you can come up and ask me, or you can come up and ask me if you'd like to. I'll do my best to answer those questions. But while we're on the station right now, we do ask you folks to keep your masks up. We sure appreciate it. Coming up on the right-hand side of the train, you'll notice this red 2-story brick building. This is the original Midland Terminal Station of Cripple Creek. It was in operations from 1894 all the way to 1949. Then they reopened their doors in 1953 as the Cripple Creek District Museum.
Look, there's another parking garage like that. That's a really good way to do a parking garage in a town like this where it still looks like
It belongs.
Yeah. Wow, they just repaved that street.
Coal dust, well, coal dust put off a lot of dust, so the dust is very easy to light. The blocks of coal itself are actually lumber. But the fact it's very dusty, so once you get that dust going,
Coming up on the left-hand side of the train and up on the hillside, we can see the remains of the Conundrum, Midget, and Moon Anchor Mines 1 and 2. And that old wooden building right in the middle, that's a blacksmith shop from the town of Anaconda. Now that blacksmith shop and our gift shop back in the station, those are the only two remaining pieces left standing from the town of Anaconda. Once again on the left side, you'll notice that pile of rock with a wooden chute on it. That's the E. Porter King mine. Now the E. Porter King and all the mines I just mentioned made just over $6 million. But that was back in the day when the price of gold was only $20 an ounce. Today the price of gold right around $1,800 an ounce. Old track.
Not too steep on this, right?
Alrighty folks, we are now well over the $1 million bill. This used to be a 40-foot tall, 60-foot long wooden bridge, but now in its place is $1 million worth of gold. But before you folks get too excited, hop off the train and start filling your pockets. It would take 20 tons of this gold ore beneath our feet to equal 1 ounce of profitable gold. Not to mention the $3 or $4 million you'd have to pay to process all this, and then you'd have to pay to rebuild the bridge for the railroad. Welcome to our first stop. This is Echo Valley. Now, usually, all the way across the valley, we'd be able to see this big, beautiful mountain range. But Colorado said, nope, it's going to rain this afternoon. Lost our view. So unfortunately, we can't really see those mountains, but they're the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. And they're about 75 miles away from us the way the crow flies, but if you folks were to actually drive down there, it'd probably be about a 220-mile drive one way. Put a little closer to the train and directly straight across, unless you can see that pile of... Well, that was pretty cool. So I went a little overboard with the whistles right there, but that's why we call it Echo Valley. It's I couldn't imagine living down there. On the days that I work, I blow the whistle so much more than I need to. But it's rumored you can hear that echo for up to 15 miles down that valley. Now, some days when it's really hot outside, the echo doesn't travel so good, it's not as loud. Today, well now, it's a little overcasty, cooler, so the echo travels pretty good. But now I'm going to be backing us up to our second stop, the World's Fair, and I'll tell you folks a little bit more about that once we get back to it.
As long as he doesn't run out of steam.
Alrighty, now I'm done, I promise.
Oh, look. Somebody was taking a picture. They had their flesh on.
Welcome to our second stop. This is the World's Fair. Now this used to be home to the El Reno, Comstock, and World's Fair mining operations. But today a majority of the mining's done over here on the right side of the train, diagonally in front of us at that big old pile of dirt we can see over there. That's actually only a small portion of the active gold mine, the Cripple Creek and Victor gold mine. Now the Cripple Creek and Victor gold mine started their operations back in 1995, and every year it seems they just keep pulling more and more gold. Usually they average right around 300,000 ounces of gold per year. Back in 2018 they pulled out over 496,000 ounces of gold. Last year, 2019, they kind of slacked off a little bit and they only pulled out 358,000 ounces. Only, right? Now figure 300,000 ounces on average times $1,800 an ounce for gold. Yeah, they're doing pretty good over there. Now in some of the areas we can see where it looks like it's a little darker, looks like it's wet. They're actually running a water and cyanide solution through all that gold ore we can see right now. They run that water and cyanide solution through it, it dissolves the ore around the gold. Then they collect that gold, melt it down, sell it, process it, whatever they please. Now what we can see of the mine right now is maybe about 20% of its entirety. It'll continue on for about 3 miles towards the town of Victor. And on the hillside of the left towards Cripple Creek, it'll continue on for another mile, maybe another mile and a half. They're expected to be in operations until the year 2045. Or at least that's what they tell us to tell you folks. For the next 10 or so years, they're going to be doing the blasting and then the water and cyanide processes. Then the next 10 to 15 years after that, they're going to be processing whatever gold's left, and then they're going to start doing the reclamation work. In other words, planting trees, grass, stuff like that on that hillside to make it look like a mountain like it used to. But now if you folks look on the left-hand side of the train through the trees, we can see a small portion of Cripple Creek. Now, depending on where you folks are from, you might call Cripple Creek a small town. And you'd probably be right. I graduated from Cripple Creek back in 2015, and I only had 17 kids in my graduating class.
Hey, you beat me.
Yeah. You can call us a small town if you'd like to. Population of Cripple Creek today, maybe 1,200 people. But back in its prime, it had a population nearing 50,000 people. And at that time, it was in the running for state capital. Now we know how that ended up. Denver ended up winning. Came to Capital, Colorado, all this good stuff. But Cripple Creek finished second, and it only lost by 4 votes. So we folks think about that a lot. It could be different today. Maybe if Cripple Creek was the state capital, I don't know, maybe we'd be riding to Denver narrow gauge right now. Or maybe we'd have the Cripple Creek Broncos instead. Now I'm going to be pulling us up over the hill, back in the Cripple Creek, for our third stop.
He was just showing. Somebody lost a shoe. Hey, it's the shoe corner.
Interstate 1 goes through
That close.
And when he woke up from that 3-day drinking spree, he realized he had sold his mine for $500 and a few cases of whiskey. Now, back in the day, $500 was a lot of money, and I guess that was some pretty good whiskey too. But he didn't win that deal. The new owners of the mine, they would go on to make just over $3.2 million worth of gold from that mine. So in other words, Bob missed out. But that was back in the day when the entire city of Cripple Creek was built entirely out of wood, even the sidewalks. Until 2 fires, 4 days apart from each other, in April of 1896, that completely burned down the entire city. Now the first fire, a couple kind of got into it down on Myers Avenue, and then knocked over an oil lamp. It caught, burned the first half of the city down. Then the second fire, 4 short days later, a grease fire inside the kitchen of the Portland Hotel. It caught, burned the second half of the city down. Now that was back in the day, not quite when Cripple Creek had 50,000 people living up here. It's more around 38 to 40, so I couldn't even imagine how big those fires actually were. Once those fires were finally put out, a new city ordinance came out saying, if you're going to build a building on Bennett Avenue, the main street of Cripple Creek, or a block away from Bennett Avenue, that building had to be entirely built out of brick. And that's why we see all these brick buildings in downtown Cripple Creek today. Now, if you folks continue looking on the left side of the train, but towards the back of the train, you can see that cone-shaped mountain back there. That cone-shaped mountain is Mount Pisgah. And at its base is the Mount Pisgah Cemetery, where some of Cripple Creek's famous folk are buried. One of them being Freddy Krueger. Oh, yeah. Freddy Krueger buried right underneath that mountain, folks. First name Fred, middle initial E, last name Krueger. Fred E. Krueger.
Oh.
Now another person buried there, maybe a little bit more famous, Dr. Susan Anderson, or Doc Susie, as everybody up here used to call her. She was one of the first female doctors in this area, and once word of her heroics and good deeds made it all the way to Hollywood, they decided to make a TV series about her. Now, some of you folks might actually recognize this TV series. I see a couple of you folks, mouthing it and saying it to each other. It's Grey's Anatomy. That looks like she's looking at me like I'm crazy. Now there's actually Scrubs. Just kidding. It was Dr. Quinn, medicine woman. See, so Cripple Creek's kind of, popular on the map a little bit if you think about it. Thank you, Dr. Susan Anderson, for that. Now, folks, I'm going to be pulling us forward, and then I'm going to be backing us back into the station. And if you guys have any questions, you can come up and ask me, and I'm positive I'm the last one here tonight. So you can come up and ask me, and I'll do my best to answer those questions. Once we get a little closer to the station, if you folks wouldn't mind putting on your masks, that way when I get down to open the door for you guys, I have mine on, you have yours on, we're all set. It's a crazy world we're all living in right now. I want to thank you folks for riding today, and I really appreciate you guys coming up spending your hard-earned money at the railroad this afternoon. Without you folks, I don't get to drive the train, teach a little bit of history, or go home smelling like coal smoke every day. In all seriousness, really do appreciate you folks, and I hope you have a wonderful, safe rest of your day up here in Cripple Creek.